You can do whatever you put your mind to. I mean, I realized that I thought 7 million. I'm like, wow, I can never do any more than that. Like, that's the most. And for me to hit 12 million this year, I really kind of told myself, like, man, you were really limiting yourself and your capabilities. This year, I'll tell you, oh man, 12 million, I can never do any more than that, because it feels like that right now, right? But I'm going to do whatever it takes to continue to win and grow and grow around the people. So I will find a way to do it.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts, Nate and Brian, are hanging out with you again, and we're looking forward to inviting none other than Brent Buckley back into your passenger seat. That's right, he returns to tell us more about his life as well as selling at twice the price of your competition. We're going to have a great conversation with him today, talking about that topic and others. But for right now, Brian and I are going to break down that idea for you ourselves. And we turn to Brian for our quote.
Perhaps the reason price is all your customers care about is because you haven't given them anything else to care about. Seth Godin.
I'm feeling kind of backed into a corner here, Brian. It's a very aggressive read on the quote.
I'm looking at you, bro.
Man. Okay.
I'm looking at every pair of ears listening to this right now because I dealt with this objection from time to time in the beginning of my career, in the middle of my career, toward the end of my career. Man, did it rarely come up. And the further I got into my career, the bigger the tickets were. And they were bigger by, I didn't present a 50-gallon electric water heater. I presented a 50-gallon electric water heater with some water treatment that fixed the problem that caused it to leak in the first place, and a handicap ADA toilet in the master bedroom because I noticed that the husband walked with a cane and was 6'4". I figured a toilet that was 2 inches taller would make his life so much easier. I just rarely presented the one thing, and everyone assumes, especially specific salespeople. Well, I won't say salespeople. Those specific sales calls where you're going to give an estimate. We go in with tunnel vision. I did it in the beginning. If it's an estimate for a water softener, you go in there thinking about water softener. I wish we weren't 30% higher than everyone else in our market because I'm just going to get beat up on this estimate. I want to hurry up and get to a service call next because all I'm doing is fighting against the guy with the pickup truck with mismatched hubcaps who's going to do this for half. Where I realized later on, I didn't go in and talk about just that water softener. Let's talk about chlorine removal, chemical removal. Let's talk about this 16-year-old water heater you have sitting next to the water softener that stopped working. And, hey, while I'm here, let me just take a look at everything. Let's talk about everything as a whole. A plumbing system, an electrical system, your entire HVAC system as a whole. If I'm presenting a piece of HVAC equipment, I am going to be presenting it with whatever indoor air quality products I think this family will benefit from. All right? So, as Tommy Mello said, we don't do apples to apples. Where everyone's selling apples, I'm selling oranges. Or apple pie. I already took care of all the rest of it for you.
You're right, Brian. And really the place to start with building value is within your own belief system. You have to believe that you yourself are bringing value to the table as well as all the other things that you are bringing. You personally, Brian Burton, you are bringing value because they have Brian Burton standing in their home. All of Brian Burton's experiences, all of your trade skills, all of your communication development, all of the mistakes that you've made in the past at other places that you now have corrected and figure out the right way to do things. You're bringing all of that to the table. Oh yeah, and here's a couple solutions that will actually fix your problem. That piece of the value starts with you. If you can believe in yourself, and I'm not saying this is like, some, believe in yourself and all work together. I'm saying you have to believe in yourself to present confidently in front of somebody. And when you do that, it brings a level of confidence to that conversation that the customer can see, they can feel, they can anticipate that this guy actually believes in what he's talking about. And that's going to be a big piece to starting that journey with the client when they see from you that you are about business, like you are about taking care of them. You are about bringing them the best value. And then from there, we're going to ask Brent some more questions about what that conversation can sound like in the home.
Yeah, my quote probably seemed a little aggressive. It's aggressive because I have had so many people text me about, can you give me a rebuttal for your twice the price of your competitors? And it is something I have a lot of rebuttals for because I've heard it so many times. And, this is one of those quotes that back in the day where Brent and I worked together, it would get thrown on the board often in different ways, which it would just be yesterday. I was at a house. I quoted, $5,500 for a water heater and water treatment. And the son-in-law walked upstairs and said, my buddy will do it for $1,500. In some variation of it, there was always there's a competitor out there who will do it for way less, right? So we've heard it a million different times. At the end of the day, once you get to the part where you're presenting the price, you've missed. If that's an hour and a half into the time you've been there, you should have been beating that objection up the entire other hour and a half. And it really starts with the one key phrase that I've always taught our techs here to use. I wish I had used the whole time I was in a truck, but probably caught on fairly late, and it made me a lot of money and a lot of customers for life, where I would just say, I just want to let you know up front, if you're looking for the absolute cheapest price and you would forego all the other aspects of service, warranty, quality products, that kind of thing, you have the wrong guy. If this was the cheapest company in town, they wouldn't be able to afford me, first and foremost. Second, I know in my industry that if you have the cheapest price, the way you serve your customers is subpar to a lot of customers in the area, or a lot of the companies in the area that have a much higher price, right? And I would not have my wife driving a 25-year-old junker vehicle. She might not have the latest model and the highest level car, and certainly use whatever car you saw in the driveway to make this analogy, but I want my wife in the safest possible vehicle that fits into our budget, even if it's at the higher end of our budget. Is that how you feel? Like building that kind of value has to be done in the beginning, the very beginning, and all the way through the presentation. You're dropping things like that in there, dropping seeds in there that you will water and give sunlight to and see them grow throughout the presentation. So when you get to the end and you show that package that you're talking about, one, shouldn't just be presenting the one thing that you're there to give the estimate for. You should be presenting a package that you've built by understanding the needs of this customer. Stop spending the whole time thinking about their budget and what they quote unquote can afford. That's what they can afford for just the heat pump that they think you're there to talk about. You're there to custom build their system, right?
Yeah, that reminds me of that Ellen Rohr quote that Tom used the other week. I'll give you their price when they give you my level of service.
Oof. Yeah. He actually, I got to go back and get it. He posted himself maybe at the gym or something on Facebook with a t-shirt on that said that. and it was like a, vertical track thing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and get that pic, throw it in the Waste No Day page, except I'm going to crop your face onto it. So for once you can see what it's like to have a little bit of muscle. And be at a gym.
I saw that coming.
That's not all treadmills.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy.
Appreciate that. Well, what we're talking about today is competitive pricing when you are dealing with a third party who's not at the table. So really, when you're sitting down with a client, it's you and them and an empty seat, and that empty seat is filled by whatever other company they have had in their home. And there's pros and cons to this, right? So the con is that they've gotten this other bid and it's probably less than you. But the pro is that they are not there to defend it. So basically, you are now in the position of arguing with an empty chair, and that empty chair has nothing to say. And so if you think of it from that perspective, you have all the ability in the world to overcome the opinions of an empty chair. We're going to be talking about that and more as we put Brent Buckley back in your passenger seat. Brent Buckley has been in the HVAC industry for well over a decade. Growing up in the industry with his father, who was part of a business in Colorado, he quickly learned the trade and got involved. Enjoying the sales aspect of the business, he decided to jump into it and became a sales or a selling tech himself and started breaking records with $1 million in the early 2000s, turning into $6-7 million, and on track to do $12 million this year. He stepped out and started his own company just last year. Fetch-A-Tech is based in Las Vegas, Nevada. Fetch-A-Tech Plumbing, Heating, and Air. And he now joins us to discuss his ideas on how to overcome competitive pricing in the home. Welcome back to the show, Brent.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Good to have you on again, buddy. I haven't talked to you in, other than texting, I haven't had a chat with you in a while. How are things going out there?
Good. Been busy building this Fetch-A-Tech for last year, and yeah, it's been a life-changing thing. I grew a lot, learned a lot this last year, and so we've been hustling and working hard over here.
I know you at least when I worked with you, were always kind of averse to a management role. Like you like to just, at your level of pay and the hours you put in a day for most of the year, it probably made very little sense for you to go management. But now you're in a world where you're part owner. Is that right? Co-owner.
Right.
And probably have to do a lot of leading and managing and holding people accountable, but you're also still selling as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm out selling with the guys and also, helping lead the team. Basically inspiring them, and bringing out like their true potential. So yeah, it's been humbling to be able to help so many people and, elevate them, in their careers. So it's kind of nice to see they're like buying houses and cars and, doing well,
Oh yeah, man, that's awesome. Like you're helping to take techs from, I run 4 calls a day and get home as early as possible to, what we liked to do and what I train people here to do and what you do in your own truck, which is, how can I help the most people possible see the vision, believe in our company, get behind our team and involve them as many products as they could possibly benefit from.
Yeah. And, one thing, that has changed a lot too is, I've really been able to create the culture that I always wanted. And, so, that is a game changer in a lot of ways because they see my work ethic, they see my production, we build the culture. And so these guys love to come to work, be competitive. And it's just awesome to see them all doing so well,
That sounds awesome, Brent. And we'd sure love to hear more about what that culture is for you. But for those of our listeners who may not be as well versed in who you are, we did have you on over a year ago. Episode 41 was your original with us. But why don't you give us kind of the 5 minutes Reader's Digest version of who you are, how you got into the trades, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I started in the trades back in 2002. My dad was a partner in a 1 hour franchise in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I went to high school and grew up in Vegas. After high school, I pretty much left and went to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and started as a helper for install for his company. So I spent probably a year and a half there. When I started as an install helper, and then probably 6 months later, worked my way into an installer, lead installer. At the time, there wasn't a lot of people doing IAQ and other, accessories to systems. So as I was installing systems, I was offering customers duct cleanings, UV lights, air purification, and I was kind of self-motivated and, money driven at the time. So, those extra things on top of the install commissions added up. And so I got the attention of the JD, who was the other owner of the company. He's like, hey, look, you've been selling a lot and kind of pissing off my sales guys. Because they would sell the jobs and I'd come in and add like, $1,000, whatever it was, to the ticket. And he's like, I think you should be a selling tech. So he sent me out to St. Louis for some Airtime 500 training, 1 hour training. I went to a technical school for, I think it was like 2 months I was out there. Went to some sales trainings and started out as a technician after, I think, about a year in the industry. Went right into it. I think my first year I sold $1 million in equipment, and that was kind of a big deal back in 2003. So at the time I was ready to go back to Vegas. I didn't really like Colorado Springs that much. So when I moved back, my dad, JD, they knew Ken Goodrich at the time, who had started Yes Air Conditioning, and so they kind of referred me over there. And so when I started over at Yes, that's when I was working with Brian. We were working side by side. He was a plumber, I was the air guy, and we were able to kind of develop a team there. And I think second or third year I was at 2 or 3 million, and I worked there for 16 years. So every year my goal was to be better than I was yesterday, or the year before. So added that on. Before I knew it, when I left in 2021, I was doing over 7 million in sales. But
off of 80% maintenance calls. Was that still accurate?
80% maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah, little did we did build an awesome culture there, because you and I kind of took it upon ourselves to fill the place with with people like us and people that we'd enjoy working with, and I thought we did a really good job of that. But also, what you might be finding out now that I've known here for the last 9 years that I've been leading teams is that we created a heck of a selling culture there. That the training that we did, the stuff that we did naturally that we just thought was a good idea has become the sales training that I implemented here for the 3 teams we have. It's really what I've implemented at FetchAtech. It's all I knew, it's all I created, and it was easy for me to come in and really develop that same, program. And the guys, they're doing really well with it here. We've been able to, increase when we started FetchAtech, the company was doing, I think between the 2 or 3 companies that we had, I think they were at like 10 million, losing $1 million. And this year we're tracking to do, 25 million with 5 million on the bottom. So wow.
which is about 20%. So, it's all about the mentality, the culture, and I've made it kind of a win-win atmosphere here. So everybody's winning, it's not just like two guys, doing all the winning,
Can you jump into that a little bit more? Like, what are some practical ways that you put that into your company?
Well, a lot of the companies here locally, and I don't know how it works there, but they have the tech turnover. So I wanted to do the tech turnover setup here because when I was over at my other company, they had like 2 or the 3, selling techs, and then whatever was left went to the guys after that, and it really was kind of like a lopsided setup where here, I have everybody that is flipping. Everyone gets opportunities. I also, I know the commission structure for most flip companies are like, 3%, 7% to the sales guy. So here we're doing 50-50. So, that way, if sometimes, the tech's putting in more work than the sales guy, they feel like they're getting their cut. If the sales guys feel like he's doing more of the work than the tech, then they get the same cut. You know what I mean? So it's been a really good setup here, and everybody encourages everybody to win, which wasn't always the case, elsewhere. And it was more of me, and here it's more of a team effort, across the board. So those are just a couple things that I do here that's different that have created a much better environment and culture for my team.
That sounds fantastic. What has been the feedback in terms of your employees? I mean, obviously growing to $25 million in 1 year. I mean, that's insane. I don't even know how that works.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably never been, I don't know if it's been done before or not, but, yeah, it's been a crazy year. I'll tell you that. But bringing people in, motivating them and allowing them to perform at their true potential has been my goal, And so, yeah, when this place was losing $1 million a year, in 2021, we were able to come in and make it profitable and create a good work environment for everybody.
Wow, that's amazing. Maybe we should have you back on to do a class on exponential growth.
Right. Well, I've been surrounded, and Brian has too. We from a young age. I started that, with Ken Goodrich or with my dad when I was 18 years old in a business that was sales driven. It was a 1-hour franchise, so I knew nothing else. And over the years, I wanted. I just continued to grow, and, with my experience and my work ethic, I was able to bring a lot to the Fetch Tech team. And, there's, a lot of the guys at the end of the day, they have had a life-changing, career here over at Fetch Tech, in just a short amount of time. So I'm happy for all of them.
Yeah. It's amazing when, well, it's like anywhere I went after, our team, that was my introduction to anyone who listens to this show regularly knows that was my introduction to anything like the world of a selling tech, despite I had been in, plumbing's a family business. So I'd been plumbing for a while, but the professional selling concept that, Ken and Lance taught you and me was
right
brand new to me. And I almost didn't go work there because Lance asked me the day I met him, when I came in just to get a job application, do you want to learn how to sell? And I'm like, how dare you, sir? Like, I'm not wearing I'm a plumber. You know what I mean? Got
not knowing that you're selling anyways.
Yeah, I just had no concept of what he meant, but he knew what he meant. And he sold me, pretty easily on what it meant to be a professional salesperson. And then everywhere I've been since then, I've kind of infected with the idea of, you're selling anyway. Like, you're
Right.
selling every time you walk in the home.
You're
Absolutely
selling
know.
anyway. You're selling anyway, and you're showing up to work every day anyways. Might as well be the best version of yourself you can be, right?
I mean, we're not shy about the money here. You might as well make as much as possible in as little time as possible, have more money and time to spend with your family or doing whatever it is you like to do. And your customer ratings will go up as a result of spending more money with you. We've proven
Right.
it hundreds of times with the techs that I've trained here. It's just over and over and over again. My customer reviews were never higher than when people were spending money with me. Now, you gotta deliver what you promise, 100%.
Right.
You got to stand behind it. You got warranties and issues are going to happen. You take care of the client first and foremost, but yeah, your reviews should go up at the same rate as your income and revenue.
Exactly. It's kind of a natural process. The more you sell, the more work you're doing, the more customers are involved, and the more feedback you're going to get.
So what'd you do last year? I heard you hit another milestone last year.
Yeah, last year I spent half the year at Yes. I think when I left there, I was at like 6 million in June for the year, and then I started Fetch Tech in August and did another 3 million. So I ended up around 9.3, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Were you selling?
And then,
were you selling like cars too, or how?
No,
did you get to 9 million? And
well, these air conditioning units are getting up there now, and with all these price increases and stuff.
So what is your typical? And I'm not talking the money, but what are you typically selling now? You said in the last podcast when you were, hitting 7 million, that you were unable to sell any more boxes because you didn't have time. So what all are you selling with a typical HVAC system now?
Well, that was a limitation on myself because, at the time I was doing 7 million. I thought there was no possible way I could sell any more air conditioning units. But this year I'm tracking to do 12 million and probably about 30% more than what I was doing when I was doing 7 million. 30% more boxes.
Oh wow! So not just add-ons.
So what I've done is I've created the team around me. Right, I've become more efficient, and my environment's changed. So that's the culture, the people around me, the mentality of everybody around me, the team I've built here to help support me. All those things have changed from when I was doing 7 million to now doing 12 million this year, and so, you can do whatever you put your mind to. I mean, I realized that I thought 7 million. I'm like, wow, I can never do any more than that. Like that's the most. And for me to hit 12 million this year, I really kind of told myself like, man, you were really limiting yourself, your capabilities. This year, I'll tell you, oh man, 12 million, I can never do any more than that, because it feels like that right now, right? But, I'm going to do whatever it takes to continue to win and grow and grow around the people. So I will find a way to do it, if it means changing, the processes and stuff that I have in place right now and adjusting, we'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, I love the mindset. You've always had that mindset. I mean, every day, every conversation I had with you and for those who haven't heard the first episode, Brent and I and a few other guys like Tom Tabor, Mike Bissell, my brother for a time, and Joey Feliciano. There was a handful of us that would game up for a half an hour before the regular meeting, and we would just write an objection on the board that someone got the day before, and then we take turns overcoming that objection until whoever had the best rebuttal would get written on the board. And we just, I don't know, we were competitive, so we just really wanted to get a better rebuttal than the other person. But it made us go out into the field and use these and try them, and like just made us push a little bit harder and get get better at communication. But Brent was always an almost robotically driven person who your goal was not to get home at a certain time. It was to figure out how to beat yourself from the day before while maintaining that incredibly high level of customer review that you always maintained, and I'm sure still maintain to this day.
Yeah, when I look back to the last 20 years, I mean, I think, man, there's not a year that I really stayed stagnant. Like, you know, every year I was driven internally to do better, do more. And so, you know, when I'm at 12 million this year is like, well, you know, what am I going to do next year? Is it going to be 13 million, 14 million, 15 million, you know? But I know I'm not going to stay stagnant. You know how many, it's not my...
You know how many HVAC, electrical, and plumbing companies are listening to this right now going, I hope this entire company does that much in revenue. 12 trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, you know, being efficient. I'm very efficient at what I do because I've got so much experience doing it, you know. When I go into a home, so my guys are trained, you know, they know how I like to have the call set up. They know every little detail and they follow it consistently because I hold them accountable. And, you know, so when I go into a call, it's very efficient, you know, it's already, so yeah, it's just next year's going to be all about being even more efficient than we are today. So that seems kind of crazy to think that it could get better, but it absolutely can, you know? And that's how we're going to that's how we're going to do more next year and win, you know?
Absolutely. You've always been about that, growth life. And it's great because we use the David Sandler quote on here often. Some people have 10 years of experience and some people have 1 year of experience that they repeat 9 times. You've never been someone to repeat the year before in terms of experience. So when you even say, like you just said, I have so many years experience, I don't even like you using that word. I'm like, it's such a devaluing word for what you are and what you do, which is like embody the waste no day concept that we try to promote here.
Waste no hour, man.
There it is.
Every minute of my day is accounted for making money, you know? So every day I have my day planned out, scheduled out. So yeah, if you want to be, you know, super successful in this business, it's a daily grind, you know? And if you don't show up, you're not getting paid, you know what I mean?
It's not just that, like not showing up one time could have cost you the learning opportunity that made you into a $3 million producer. Like imagine you missed the step that one call that you tried something you'd never tried and normally wouldn't, but you were feeling yourself that day and you just went for it and you're like, oh my goodness, the game changer.
So like 2 weeks ago, there was this job that had 8 units on one house. It was a big job. One of the techs saw it on his schedule and he's like, he called out sick. He didn't want to deal with it, right?
Oof.
So we sent out another technician. He flips the job over. I go over there and I sell 8 inverters for $220,000 for our largest sale ever.
Oh, word.
So he was kicking himself and he's telling the other guys, he didn't tell me this. He's like, I saw on the schedule, it looked like it was a warranty because they put a coil in and this and that. What he didn't realize was that there was 7 old systems there, you know? And, so he was really kicking himself, and that was a simple, you know, mistake on his end that ended up costing him quite a bit of opportunity, learning experience with me being out there. And also they referred their neighbor over and for another $140,000 in the same week.
How many, or is this like Elton John's neighborhood or something? What was this?
This is Lake Las Vegas. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yeah, it's been a while. But
yeah,
that's where Celine Dion's house was that I actually got to work at when I was there.
Yeah, yeah. It was this dude used to be the CFO of McDonald's or something at one time. So crazy, but it's just, you know, it's a daily thing. And if I always preach, coach these guys, like being consistent in your process. I don't care what your process is, whatever it works for you. We do trainings and we get all the, different trainings from different people, and they take a little bit of everything. That's kind of how I created my process as a service tech, but whatever their process is that works, consistently do it and tweak it. And, over the years, you're going to become, a top performer. If you can stay consistent. And, there's no substitute for hard work, right? The people that work the hardest are going to win the most, outside of talent as well. So, but yeah.
I feel bad for that tech, man. His name has got to be like inscribed into the building now. It's probably a noun. Like, oh yeah, we pulled a Freddy over there on that one. Like sheesh.
Right.
Took a sick day and missed a month's worth of income.
Oh man.
I know he was kicking himself, probably like so, it happens, man. Sorry.
Yeah. Who hasn't been there? Who hasn't been there when a call you would have headed to, or someone asked you to take a late call and you're like, man, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm gonna head home. And then your boy, who is not nearly as good at you as selling, goes out and turns one of the biggest tickets that's ever happened. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Right.
So let's go to a place where we wanted to go with this episode, because I get asked a lot in like Facebook messages and stuff from audience members. What are we saying to combat the Joe Schmo who's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, whatever, will do this for half of what you're quoting? And obviously I have some rebuttals that I would use in the field, but I don't want to just make this a rebuttal thing, because as well as I do that this starts way before you're quoting a price, right?
Right.
I mean, certainly it starts as soon as they see your advertisement, and then when they call into the shop is part two, and then it goes from there. But just in terms of the technician, it starts where you park your truck. And I know this is something you deal with often, so let's walk through how you are separating yourself from the guy with the magnet on his pickup that will do it for half price.
Yeah, I mean, first off, like, when my guys go to a call, I tell them, like, look, guys, if you don't make an impression while you're there, they can get another contractor at their choice of 500 contractors in Vegas to their front door within an hour. So you better make an impression. But yeah, it all comes down to the little stuff, right? The little stuff leads to the big. So parking in front of their house, introducing yourself, putting on booties, spending time with the customer to get to know them, having empathy for a customer. Their situations are all different, some people are struggling, some aren't, some live in big houses, some don't, they live in small houses. So not prejudging the call and just realizing that you're in front of a customer that, has you there for a reason, and, really caring about their needs and wants, and asking a lot of questions, and, guiding them down the path that you're, looking for, as far as like whatever, their best fix is, but it's all about closing the objections, like, along the way, right? When people ride along with me, they're like, I mean, this is just crazy. Like, you're making it so easy. Like, they're just saying yes. Everyone's saying yes. You're just getting the best calls. And it's like, no, if you didn't realize little details along the way, that I'm closing objections, I'm making a friend, and I'm doing the right thing for the customer, they feel that, right? So what was that Tom Hawkins quote or is it Zig Ziglar, where they, they don't know how much you know until, or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember that quote.
Covey, Stephen Covey? They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah. So, and if they like you, they'll listen to you. If they trust you, they'll buy. And, so that's so true because, you know, a lot of things I do out there is nothing like crazy or out of the ordinary. Like I'm just being there, being natural, being a friend, going over options, asking questions, spending time. And, you know, if you can find a process that works for you to do that, you know, you're not rushing in there and then, you know, hitting them over the head with a bat and trying to make a big sale and get out of there. People read onto that. You know, that's the vibes that you put off are going to make the biggest difference.
It really is the biggest difference. And I know inevitably I'll get messages from people who say, hey, I do all that stuff you guys just said, but still every 2 out of 3 calls I get to the end and present the price and they say, well, so-and-so will do this for half. And I just want to start by saying you don't do all that. If you were doing everything Brent just said, how often do you get that? Despite the fact that there are, of those 500 companies, what would you say, 300 of them are doing it for half what you're charging?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say when I get down to the end, only probably 20 or 30% really are, you know, have the objection of price. Because along the way, I'm talking to the customer and I'm closing the objections. And price is sometimes one of them. You know, I have a book of bids from other companies. I've got, I go online and show them what the average cost to do a certain system is. Like I'm doing that along the way. When we get to the end and we're presenting the price, like I just don't get that many price objections. Unless they've had
let's back up there for just a second.
You just quietly slipped in that you're going online and showing them the average price for what you're planning on doing.
So I might be out at the unit, you know, looking at it and they're like, well, how much is a new unit? You know, blah, 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 blah. And they're just kind of pretty insistent about it. You know, I might just be like, well, let's look online. You know, the average cost to install, an inverter unit, blah, 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 is $20,000. I mean, sometimes it could be more or high or whatever, you know, and I'll show them a couple bids from customers I've seen in the past from other companies. Like, hey, here's the average. So sometimes it could be more, some less, but, you know, so I'm price conditioning them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you're getting them ready for
price conditioning. That's not always the case, but sometimes when I have somebody that's persistent, but then I'll always defer back to let me finish my evaluation, going through everything. I don't want to miss anything. And at the end, we'll kind of go over all the different options that we have. But in the meantime, they're thinking about, okay, the average cost to do a new unit is 10 to 20 grand, you know, or whatever. Right. So that is something, you know, a technique that I use and it's called price conditioning. And so when we go over the pricing, now it's just a matter of not if they're going to buy one, it's just a matter of which one, you know?
So, but I mean, how are you not undercutting yourself there? Like, I'm sure you've gotten, well, Brent, why would I go with you? I could get it for right here. You're literally showing me right now.
Well, you know, when I talk to them, if I show them a bid from 10 to 20 grand, how do I go from, you know, like 15,000 to 25,000? Well, you know, that's for a base model unit. That's not a high efficiency system. And so, you know, I will present all the options, go through every single thing. And I find most customers are somewhere in the middle. And sometimes they'll go in the high, the way that I present inverters and higher end equipment. But
are you still adding in all the indoor air quality options? And
so that's another thing we could add at the end that builds the ticket up. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm just trying to establish, you know, a range that they can, you know, they can relate to, basically. Like, okay, online it says an average unit's 14,000 or 13,000. Now obviously, just like buying anything, a house or a car or TV, you can buy low end to high end. And so I go over everything with them, and they usually pick, something in the middle to high end. Don't sell a lot of lower end stuff. I mean, you'll have those customers that want just kind of the cheapest of cheapest because they're moving or it's a rental property. But my average ticket is $22,000. So I can tell you that my process works.
Yeah, and you're not dealing with a lot of customers who, well, for one, I'm sure that one of the first things you pull up with average price, quote unquote, is $12,000, but then your average is 22, and you're dealing with customers who think it's going to be 8 day in, day out.
Well,
right?
I have customers that think a new air conditioning unit is going to be $4 or $5 grand. Even if I sold a unit for 12 grand, it'd still be too much. You know what I mean?
Always.
So if it was 5 grand, 8 grand, 10 grand, 12 grand, it's always too much. So, I'm just trying to price condition them a little bit. I'll show them quotes of other major contractors in my area that are similar cost to me or less. And, I can bridge the gap between, an average ticket of $12,000 to $15,000 to going to $25,000. I can bridge that gap in the value that I build and my presentation to the customer and the experience they get from me. So I don't have a challenge.
I do want to just interject there. Like you talked about how well and how easily you bridge the gap between a $10,000 difference while talking about the experience, as well as what you said earlier about just being so efficient that every minute of your day is accounted for and dedicated to getting the most that you possibly can out of it. And I just want to say, in both of those things, that's not always been you. It's just every day you took a step in that direction, because both of those can sound daunting to, a guy who's 9 months into this trade or a guy who's 9 years into this trade, but always just done I hit my 4 calls, my 3 calls, whatever, and try to get home as early as possible. I'd love to make more money. I'd love to treat my clients with more, dignity and respect and give them the service they deserve. It's just easier not to, and I'll never be that good anyway. So why try? I just want to say that it's a step-by-step process, a little bit every day.
Every day you want to be better than you were yesterday. And like I said, work on your process, your customer experience, the way that you handle things in the field, and tweak it, and every year you'll get better and better and better. But, you have to have the internal drive inside of you that says that I want to win. I'm going to win. Customers want to do business with me. I'm the best technician to be at their home. Those are things that you need to build. They need to build their confidence. Those confidence goes a long ways when you're talking with customers. They can feel it. They can, the vibe is there,
Well, speaking of building some confidence here, if you would be up to it, Brent, we'd sure love to hear what a role play like that would sound like with Brian, our customer.
Okay.
with the springing the role play. He texts me, want a role play? I'm like, go for it. Oh, you meant me. No, I'm good.
You gotta understand, a lot of the process that I do is, it's nonverbal. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's my body language. It's the way that I talk to customers in a way, the way that I make customers feel,
Yeah. And
some of the stuff I say isn't like, it's not, it's nothing that a lot of you guys aren't already doing, but it's the way that I talk, the way I handle it. And really the nonverbal stuff too,
Yeah, and that's hard for us to capture, obviously, on an audio podcast. But also, the Tommy Mello was on here a few weeks ago, and one thing he said that, one analogy that you and I have always talked about and heard, and every time it comes up, it's like brand new, which he said, where everyone is selling apples to apples, I'm selling oranges. It's the fact that part of your presentation is to present things that your competitors aren't even presenting. Like they're not even including this stuff. I mean, probably majority of comfort advisors and selling techs go out there so tunnel vision focused on what piece of equipment is sitting there and replacing it with nearly the exact same thing, while you're talking about ductwork, IAQ, insulation.
There's no one in the Valley but like 2 other companies that are looking at ductwork, static pressure. They're putting in these high-end, high-efficiency systems on 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old duct systems that are undersized, that cannot move the airflow or have the efficiency to get the full, value out of the equipment they're buying. And so that alone, I mean, I can't even tell you how many sales I've gotten just from the fact that I'm talking about something they never mentioned,
Yeah, selling oranges. Selling oranges at the Apple market.
Right. And I'm an expert at, at really finding, what other people are leaving on the table,
Yeah, another thing I wanted to say, just to throw out there, was that, I mean, I remember when I was there, I would hear HVAC techs at the company we worked for talk about, you're just out there ripping people off. Like, I would actually hear that. Despite the fact that, well, they probably didn't know it at the time, but I would get you out to my calls when you didn't have a call. You would get me out to your calls to look at the plumbing when I didn't have a call. And I'd been in the laundry room when you walked up the driveway, met the client, I'd introduce you, and then you'd go through your process, and I'd listen to it as someone. I was a high producing tech anyway, but I would listen to your process and go, my God, I got some work to do. I got so much work to do. Because even then, when you were doing, I don't know, 2 million, 3 million when I left, you were a pro. I was specifically listening for the time that you started, telling someone their.
So you're saying I was a pro in 2008?
Yeah, 2008, 2009. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I've probably been in the business 6 years at that point. So the guys that are listening, that are been in the business 4 to 6 years, trying to elevate themselves, it gets better every year. That you put the effort and training in, and yeah.
But my point there was the fact that I would have technicians say you were out there being dishonest in the company we were at, and I would check them when I heard that and say that by the time I left, I probably had you on several dozen calls, I would think, and never heard you say something to a client that was the slightest bit deceptive. One thing I would say was that, I mean, I remember one complaint that we got on a job you went to that I called you out to, where the people said he tried to sell us like $20,000 worth of stuff or whatever the number was back in 2007, 2008. And this other company came out and told us we didn't need any of it, and they did it for $8,000. But I was there. It wasn't you told them they needed a bunch of stuff. It was like you were talking about all this indoor air quality stuff. I think we had just started doing the blow-in insulation, and you were talking about that and what benefit there would be. But never did you say, you got to do this or else. Never did you say, carbon monoxide is going to kill the whole neighborhood if you don't do it. There was nothing like that at all. It was very professional, very, here's what I recommend. Here's the benefit that you will see. Here's the efficiency increase. I always loved having you over. I got better at my presentation every time I had you over, and I never heard you say anything that I would be upset if you said to my mom on a call.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's nothing new that I haven't heard for the last 20 years. Brent gets all the calls. Brent's ripping people off. Brent's taking advantage of people. There's no way that Brent can sell $7 million a year and have a happy customer. That's all stuff that I've been hearing for years and years and years. But, none of those guys have ever rode with me. They've never seen my process. I get zero customer complaints in the past. So it's just their justification as to why they're not leveling up.
Oh yeah.
So don't be that guy.
Well, I know that you do have some subtleties and some nonverbal cues, but for the listening audience, let's give this thing a go.
Okay.
Cool. So I before you go any further, Brent, I just gotta say, I'm looking at your quote here that you're holding in your hand, and I did a little research before you got here. You know, I'm no slouch. I know that I can get this job that you're showing me for $28,000. I know I can get it done for about 10. So what gives here, Brent?
Well, Brian, let me ask you this. Who have you had out? Is there an estimate that we can take a look at and compare apples to apples?
Yeah. So here's the estimate I got from John and Joe's HVAC services. It's written in crayon on paper, and it just says new HVAC system with all the fixins for $12,000.
Well, first thing that comes to mind is that, they're trying to put an inverter air conditioning unit on the existing duct system that's 40 years old that, your static pressure is at 1.4 right now. Did they take a look at that?
Boy, if they did, they sure didn't mention it to me.
Okay. All right. Also, I know we had talked about earlier in the call that you guys had some issues with air quality in the home. I guess your son has asthma, and you guys were concerned with that. Was that price including the indoor air quality package as well?
Not that I know of. By all the fixins, I assumed everything was in there, but yeah, they didn't talk about anything like that.
Okay. After we went over all of our guarantees, I don't see anything on here. Do they have like a 24-hour priority service guarantee or the no lemon guarantee?
Ooh, man, sure don't remember them mentioning it. Yeah, I would hope they would call me back within 24 hours.
Yeah, I don't, from what I can see here, we're not comparing apples to apples. And also here, let me kind of show you, I've got a couple other competitor bids I've seen here. Everybody's kind of, a little bit less or a little bit more than what I am. And, you're talking $15,000 difference. Don't you agree that there's something wrong with that?
I do. That's why I brought it up. I thought, I'm thinking, looking apples to apples here, you're just a really high-priced version of them. But they didn't bring up the ductwork. They didn't bring up the electronic filter you spoke of. Not sure about whether they'll come out here with the priority service, but if I have all this stuff replaced, do I need priority service?
Yeah, of course. In instance that, something doesn't go right, you would want us out here, right away, wouldn't you, in the middle of July when it's 110 degrees?
Well, I don't see it getting 110 degrees here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but it's certainly not cool by any means, and I would like to have you out as soon as possible. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, is that your only quote? Did you just have mine and theirs? Or have you had anybody else out?
I also had this second quote where I just texted. I took a picture of their quote and then texted it to another company, a buddy that works there. I also took a pic of yours while you weren't looking and texted them that as well. And here you can see the text where he said, "Aw, shucks, we can do all that for 20% less."
So you're telling me that we're kind of like a 20% difference here?
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, so the job is what, 28,000? What's 20% of that?
What, 26?
What, $5,000?
56.
So, Brian, what you're telling me is that we're really about $5,600 difference between, our top line unit and the other company's top line unit?
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Okay. Do you see the value in everything that I'm offering you today with the, all the guarantees, the permits that they're not pulling, that they don't have anything on?
I do see benefit in everything you've shown me so far. What I don't know is what the difference is between this quote and the other company's quote. I guess part of the reason I don't know the difference is because they didn't mention any of this stuff.
Exactly. They didn't mention it because usually people aren't going to mention stuff that they don't do, right?
Oh, is that why?
I mean, I would say so.
See, I'm being both very easy customer for Brent while also throwing him some ridiculous curveballs. But one thing I want to emphasize.
Well, the reality is that, we're $5,000 difference on a high-end system. And, my company can provide you a lot better quality of work and service. Here's my reviews. Take a look at those. But I don't, is there, I might even ask them like, hey, look, I know we're $5,000 difference. What if we met in the middle, or, we did something, or I threw in, some additional work to get the deal done.
Or one thing I've done myself many times is go, look, I can get down to that number if that's the number you want. I'm going to start pulling off things that they never even brought up.
Exactly.
So you're not going to get what I quoted you here. I can get down to what they quoted you, but all this other stuff seemed like it was very important to you. Do you still agree that stuff is important to you? Which is products that can greatly decrease the, growth in bacteria in the ductwork, which can greatly decrease the pollen and dust in the air for, Tommy, who you said has seasonal allergies. And as you said, they're worse here in the morning and, when he gets home from school than they are outside and at school. So are those things still important to you?
When we started, you were at $10,000, I was at 28,000. Now we're looking at $5,600 difference there,
Yeah.
So,
and a maybe.
Yeah. And that's a gap that you're going to have to build value for in some way or another, depending on the customer. Every customer is a little different, and what matters to them is different too. So, but that was a great role play, man.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if it literally is the difference in $100 or even $1,000, that you're if you're talking about a $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 system, and the client is willing to walk away from you for less than 10%, you have not, and I'm, take this personally, don't take it personally, but you have not established yourself as someone that they are willing to pay 10% more to do business with, even if it's apples to apples. That's a problem.
Yeah, they probably would not pay 10% less either.
Right. I rarely had clients personally that I felt like wouldn't pay 10% more knowing it just to have me be the company, me be the person, the team, the company that was doing their plumbing job. So I could easily tell my clients that I'm going to be 10% more than any other plumber in the area that you get out here to do the exact same work. But we're worth it. Like, I had built the value in me personally and my team that you would pay 10% more to have me do it, if that makes sense.
Right.
Well, Brent, we know that you got to get out there and start making some money. So we're going to bring this thing into a landing. Thanks for role playing with Brian there, because I think this is such a common objection that people hear, specifically those that listen to this podcast, probably more than others. But in terms of building that value, this is something that you have done over your entire career, and you've learned it, you've lived it, and you continue to train on it today. If we have some listeners who are struggling with those concepts, like what of selling at twice the price or whatever the number is, where would be the best place for them to start building that value? Like, what was one or two things that really tipped the scales in your favor as you were coming up at these higher prices and selling against the competition that made sense for you?
Their process from the minute they walk in the door. Like we're talking to, I don't get these objections that much as you guys do, or some other people do, and it's because I'm my process from the call, from the start to finish, it's so detailed and so consistent, and I'm closing objections through the whole call, So at the end, I don't have people shop at me. They want to do business with me, because I'm the best, right? So perfecting their process, staying consistent, and working hard.
Well, Brent, also, since your resume is a little updated, if people are interested in learning more about you or anywhere of connecting with you, where's the best place to find that?
Most of the people find me on Facebook, Brent Buckley, Las Vegas. They can reach out to me through the messenger. I'm willing to help anybody, man. I get a lot of people that reach out to me all the time, and so I have the answers a lot of times.
Yes, he does. I still do it from time to time myself. Just an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to, I want to say overcoming objections, but the reality of it is like the lack of fear of rejection, where you will just go in there and ask for the business 100% of the time, ask more than one time. And that takes work. It takes practice. It takes work. It takes, conditioning on your own part, and talking to somebody like him regularly. If you don't have anyone like that on your team, it will help you work through that, because someone's out there doing it day in, day out.
Yep.
Well, Brent, we love the motivation, man. Thanks so much for constantly challenging us to find that next rung on the ladder, even when you're already at the top. We love it, and we encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for sharing some of that knowledge with us today.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. You guys have a great day.
Well, that's it for this podcast. Such a wealth of knowledge there, Brent Buckley. It was great to hear from him again and to learn all that he is doing in his new venture, Fetch-A-Tech. Brent has such a good way of expressing things, and he just makes it seem so easy, and yet what he's doing in the home is just groundbreaking stuff, and what he's doing is literally breaking records every single day. $200,000 in a single sale. He's literally the $12 million man, a $25 million company in 1 year. I mean, the list goes on and on. So hit him up if you got some questions or you want some advice or even some encouragement, and make sure that you're taking away from this podcast the importance of building value before you even get to the price, and then showing the value of the price that you have quoted. That's it for this podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show with Brent and all the shows that we're bringing to you. As always, we would appreciate any feedback that you would give us. 5-star reviews, share it out to the people that you know and love, and anybody who would really find this beneficial. As for now, we're going to leave you with our regular weekly challenge, which is to choose to wake up every single morning and waste no day.